As an entrepreneur, you manage a lot of different projects for your business and in your life. I know that I do. I've tried so many different solutions, but none of them measured up. Enter Cardsmith. Imagine a wall of sticky notes, each note having one element of each of your projects organized just how you like. I'll let Monica and Jo share their story with you.
So I'm Monica, I'm the CEO of Cardsmith, and this is Jo, my co-founder, and she's the main designer for Cardsmith. And we help small innovative teams by creating a visual project management tool that works the way they think it needs to work, as opposed to the way a very structured, cumbersome project management tool might require them to work.
And I'm Jo. My background's design. I'm the Chief Creative Officer and co-founder of Cardsmith, and we really love creative entrepreneurs. Can you imagine the world without people that have these dreams to make the world a better place and they want to bring them to reality? It would be, I think, a lesser place without these folks. And so we really want to help these people, and we can understand their pains as we are living them ourselves. So the problem that we're trying to solve, I think it's twofold. First off, if you're doing something new and innovative, it's never been done, well, you don't actually know how to do it because you've never done it before. So you need a tool that's flexible, that allows you to plan, because I think anything that's big and new and innovative, it does need a plan. You know, a little planning goes a long way. But how do you create a plan if you don't really know what the plan is? So you need this tool that will allow you to structure things as you understand them and need to structure them, but then you need this flexibility in the tool that allows you to go wide or deep as the project or the experience demands. And then secondly, I think that when we're doing these big, exciting things, it takes a lot of different mindsets. It takes often a team full of different perspectives to bring it to life. And a lot of tools, I think, are geared towards people who love structure. And structure's great. But then there's, I think, a really important contingent within these teams, often the creative contingent, who, structure just feels like this burden. And oftentimes, and I'm guilty of this, I'm not proud of this, but like when someone puts this project management plan in place and maybe it's in Excel, I don't want to participate. Like, this tool just makes me feel like I'm tied up, and it makes me feel not free. So I think Cardsmith is this great tool because it supports all these different types of mindsets. It's a place where people can all come together and collaborate, and their processes and perspectives are respected.
What's most important is to have an idea of where you're going. And so what is the end goal for your startup? I also think you need to be very clear with yourself as to whether you're building a lifestyle business or a growth business, because what you're going to do and what your plan will look like will be quite different if you're trying to build yourself a nice life with a very small team, or you're trying to build a high growth business that you're going to need investors to get involved. But either way is fine. It's just being very clear about that with yourself, I think, is the first step. And then the other thing I would suggest is make some very aggressive milestones for yourself. And so milestones are more key than individual tasks. But make those milestones. When are you going to get to your first revenue? When are you going to double your revenue? When are you going to get to your first $1 million? And then you can do the detailed, concentrated task plan around what's the next milestone that I have to get to.
Well, it's interesting. I think being a perfectionist, it's great. It's served me really well in the past when I worked with hardware as a designer. Like, my background's industrial design, so I design a lot of products that get manufactured and they get made over and over and over again. And you create these designs and you get very specific, like what this radius is, and then it gets sent off to tooling, and it's very expensive, sometimes millions and millions of dollars. And so being a perfectionist is great because you want to have everything tied up in a knot and bow and be as perfect as possible. Well, when you have a software startup, that's really not helpful because you have to get stuff out there, even though it's not perfect. You have to completely accept, like, this is full of flaws. And I think as a designer, it's so personal. Even though, we're trying to solve problems, we're trying to do things outside of ourselves, it's still very personal. And so it's very hard to let go and just say, this is good enough. Because what I've learned in software and in a startup, there's this concept, right, that great is the enemy of good. And I always joke, like, oh, good is the enemy of great. But I think in terms of a software startup, you can't have great until you have good. And so it's a completely different mind shift. And it's been really hard for me. And certainly, I know, frustrating for Monica at times, because she's very much like, we've got to meet this goal. And certainly, yeah. So that's one of our biggest, my biggest hurdles, for sure.
What's tripped me up, I think, the most was this fear of asking people for money for our software. Because a lot of what Jo has experienced with wanting it to be this great thing, I think with the startup, you have to be willing to put yourself out there before it's ready. And it was really, really hard for me to ask people for money. We gave the software away in its early stages. We practically begged people to use it in the early days. But once I was pushed by a mentor of mine to pick up the phone and ask people to pay for it, that was super, super hard. But we did get there, and that was one of the best feelings ever, was to have that first yes. Yes, I will pay for your software.
One of the things I always tell myself, anything that's really big, that's worth doing, is really hard. I know that sounds super trite, but like, I always tell myself, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And so you just have to accept that it's going to be really hard, and you have to know that you have to dig, I guess, inside and just be super firm to your core belief that this is worth doing, even when people want to push you aside or question your vision. And I think the other thing that really centers me when things are challenging, it's like, I decided to do this. This is my choice. No one's telling me to do this. I signed up for this. And so I take responsibility for this decision. For example, last week our oven door fell off. And it's hanging on a bungee cord so that it doesn't, fall on one of us, which would be kind of tragic. And I don't know when we're going to get a new oven, but I'm okay with that. So someday I hope to get a new oven. I hope Cardsmith will be really successful. We're working towards that. But at this point in time, I really embrace the fact that we're making these sacrifices to make something bigger in the future.
And I actually call Jo. So being the CEO, you have to wear a lot of hats. And sometimes I joke that I get to do all the work that nobody else wants to do. I get to talk to the lawyers and do the accounting. And these are things that I don't really want to do, but I have to. And sometimes there's like 200 things on my to-do list. And that's really what I guess gets me down the most. And sometimes I just feel overwhelmed, and it's great to have Jo there because she's so optimistic, and she gets me back into that optimistic space and allows me to just say, hey, just do one thing. Just what's the one thing you need to do today to get through this? And then you just get back into action.
Yeah. And by the way, I so appreciate that you do all that stuff.
Gosh, there's so many resources in Portland. There's so many startup incubators and meetup groups and people that have been through this process before that are willing to help. But I think one organization that stuck out for me and really helped me a lot is an organization run by Carolyn Duncan, the 10X organization. And she was the one that really pushed us to get to those milestones that made us uncomfortable. Like, she was the one that made me pick up the phone and make that first sales call. And so that accountability in that resource, because it's something you sign up and pay for, and you basically get kicked out if you don't perform and do what you say you're going to do. That was a huge benefit to us. I don't think there's any other choice. I get bored easily. I like the variety of things. And I think the entrepreneur and creating something that's this big project is like this big puzzle. And so you just have to learn new things all the time, and you're constantly growing as a person as well to deal with new challenges as you start to build a bigger team and face additional challenges that you never thought you might come across. And that to me is just really exciting.
My answer to this question, why am I an entrepreneur? Like, it's so similar to Monica's. It's like, it's so obvious like that there's no other state of being for me at this point in my life. But at some point it wasn't obvious. And I remember the first time, my first startup, which was a food business, a lot of people were discouraging me from starting a food business because, well, there's a lot of reasons not to. It's really hard. But someone that knew me really well thought, wow, Jo, I can see you doing this because you really don't like hierarchy. And it's true. I really don't. And I think there's this sense of freedom, right? But I think now, as more time has gone on, I feel like it's not that I don't need structure. It's that I need to create my own structure. And I need to have my own internal motivation to bring something to life that I believe in. And I feel really fortunate, too, that I have a partner in this. And so I think that also has helped me make this leap because I'm not alone. I have someone, we have a core belief around this product that we're trying to bring to life.
Yeah, so I really got obsessed with visual systems when I was working in the Gulf of Mexico. I was consulting to BP, and this was after the horrible explosion that they had in the Gulf of Mexico. And the project managers there that were responsible for all of the repairs and maintenance of these oil rigs, their work was very chaotic and work wasn't getting done because there was a lot of quality things that got put into place and some political challenges that they had to deal with. And so what I did was, or what my team did, was take them out of a multi-million-dollar database, big corporate project management system, and we put them onto a system that I've seen in walls of kindergarten classes. I mean, there was yarn from the craft store on the wall. It was a 35-foot wall. There was, each project was on a construction paper card of different colors, and we put those things on the wall in a portfolio, a visual portfolio plan, and then brought the teams together in a stand-up meeting every day. And they started to, first of all, agree on the process. And the goal was to move the cards from, not done to done. And there was many steps along the way, but it was a real collaborative tool. And people started physically pointing to the problem on the wall as opposed to pointing fingers at each other in a meeting. And that happened in a matter of about 2 weeks. So it was just so quick to see that transformation in this team because of this visual, tactile solution. And that got me just even more in love with Post-it notes and index cards than I already was, because I've used Post-it notes for a long time. But it's such a flexible medium, and it's so visual, and I'm a visual person, that it's just, it's the first idea that I've really had that has stuck with me for this many years. And so now, it took a while to get the idea going, but once it's going, it's for sure what we're going to do. It's not going to change again.
Yep. I think there's something so powerful about these things because we've been working with them our whole lives, right? Like, everyone knows what to do with a sticky note. But if you go into like most project management systems, it's like, what do I do? Where do I put these? There's like a learning curve, and it doesn't feel very human. And so I think the solution she talks about was this very, it was oriented towards people, oriented towards humans. I think our customers love us because we love them. As a designer, I've always been very user-centered, and so the whole purpose of what I'm trying to do is to solve problems for other people. So I think that we do our best to not make it about us and about them. And so at this point too, in our where we are as a company and a product, we are still making very big improvements. We're still trying to understand how people use it. So we've developed some very, very strong relationships with our early users. We want to know how they're using it, how we can make it better for them. So there's a conversation, a very deep conversation that's happening between us. And I think they also love us because we're making their life better. I think for a lot of people, like creatives in particular, I can relate because that's me. when you talk about project management tools, it just feels like, oh, this heavy thing. And so we're taking this thing that a lot of people avoid doing or think is going to be really unpleasant, and we actually make it fun. And we make it something they want to do, something they look forward to, because it's so essential to do if you want to make a dent in the universe.